So there I was, proof in my hand of my wife's infidelity. I couldn't believe what I was reading on her phone. Couldn't believe what I was seeing. That was the day everything all changed. The world as I knew it ceased to exist again. There's a quote that Denzel Washington's character in The Equalizer, he says there's two kinds of pain in this world: the pain that hurts and the pain that alters. I don't remember much about that day. Not very much details, but three things really keep sticking out to me. And the first one is that killer cocktail of emotions that were swirling, that white hot anger and confusion and retching heartache. Number two is how impotent and how naive and stupid I felt. And the shame of it could have driven me to kill. Hell, if I hadn't been doing therapy, I might have. And for once in my life, running away actually saved my life. I actually drove off. The only thing she said to me was, I cheated on you, and I liked it. As I was driving, I called a good friend of mine, and I asked to speak to his wife, who was getting her master's degree in psychology. And she said something to me that I'm totally indebted to her for. She said, don't do anything permanent in your temporary emotion. Don't do anything permanent in your temporary emotion. So I guess that's a fourth little bonus. The third would be to reach out, get help, get a different perspective, because when you're this close to the problem, you can't see what you need. You need Overwatch. You need somebody looking over your shoulder. Because shame will rot you from the inside out in silence and in isolation. I told you a bit about the pain that altered me, that altered my course. Let me tell you what I'm doing now. I belong to an honor based men's community based in brotherhood, accountability, leadership, and it's called K4. Stands for King of the Four Houses. Using Carl Jung's archetypes: the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. I lead a weekly accountability group for men of all walks of life and all parts of the world. Currently, I've got guys in Australia, Florida, and every corner of California. And it's as diverse a background as you can think of. We've got Hollywood elite, we've got rocket engineers, stockbrokers, analysts, physical therapist, child psychologist. I think I said that one already. Metal workers, We got work, fathers, husbands, single, divorced, and all in between. I've spent over 500 hours in the past year in Zoom meetings, on calls, in group chats, retreats, get-togethers with my group and the whole network of K4, which is even more diverse and more vast of inspiring men doing amazing work. And I'm grateful to be one of them. From the intro, you might not know it, but my specialty is relationships. How am I a specialist in relationships? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you what started all of this that I've gained from being in this group of men doing work on themselves. I've come to see the root of where my core wound comes from. And it all started with my Irish twin. If you don't know what an Irish twin is, it's having two children within 12 months. So I was born August 11th, and my brother was born September 9th of the next year. Yeah, Pops was a savage. He did not let my mom get a breath. Man. Anyway, so through that, I figured that my love language is touch and affection, because I didn't get it from my mom. If you can think about it, she's, have a newborn in one hand, breastfeeding and nurturing the newborn. Naturally, if I'm one, I'm not getting as much as my brother was. So that kind of started the whole thing, right? So you could say I'm the guy that didn't get hugged much as a kid, and that's why I have issues. Another thing that had me change my course was the day that I lost my innocence. You see, I wasn't violated, I wasn't raped, I wasn't forced against my will. A neighbor of mine who was older, I think I was like in 5th or 6th grade, and they were babysitting, or there was like a family emergency. Anyways, it was a spin the bottle game that went too far. And after that, I remember not playing with toys anymore. This person opened up a biological primal response in me that to this day is a driving force in much of what I do. And I'm pretty sure you can agree with that. I'm not an addict. Well, I'm not a drug addict. But when I hear the guys that are recovering, they say that what they were chasing is the first high. And as a 5th grader, you don't have very much sex appeal. So you got to find that first high somewhere else. And mine was porn. You see, in my neighborhood, there was a abandoned church that the crackheads and the bums took over. And in this church, they had stacks of smut. And we would always goad each other, the kids in the neighborhood, to go in and grab some. A, it was a trophy and it was like a sign of honor. And B, we get to see porn, you know. We get to see we got to see naked moms, you know. Uh, After that day, that need to relive what I just felt, the full attention and affection of a woman, the that primal release, all those chemical cocktails that come with that ran over my fears. And subsequently I became the neighborhood porn plug. Sadly, I had an endless amount of supply, and that's where the problems began. Because I was raised extremely Catholic. Side note, I actually had a shirt. It was like a yellow shirt that said Extreme Catholic, and the X was the cross. I'll dig it up, and I probably have pictures of it. Anyway, I lived a double life because I wanted to be a good Catholic boy, and I have a love-hate relationship with the church. See, in one hand, it gave me structure and guidance and morals, but in the other hand, it simultaneously filled me with guilt and dread and very healthy portions of sexual shame. And I remember just being indoctrinated in naivete. It was actually pretty ridiculous. Uh, Thinking back of how they inculcated the pedestalization of women, and anyways, we'll get into that later. I digress. Living a double life with my newly acquired sexual urges and porn and masturbation and being a good Catholic boy really, really messed me up. And I fell into this void of trying to balance the two. And I actually went to a retreat to see if I was going to be a priest. A vocational retreat. That's what they called it at Prince of Peace Abbey in Oceanside, California. I don't remember if it was a long weekend or a whole week where you lived with the monks. The monks they don't have a room. It's called a cell. It's literally a bed, maybe a little desk, like a little prayer space with a kneeler and like a nice chair. Like outside of their cell was a little gardening area, and you get like a really small garage, or not garage, closet. The monks and the priest, depending on the order, meaning depending on what branch or what saint founded that order, they have vows. Typically, it's a vow of poverty, obedience, and chastity. So poverty meaning you you live off of donations, you vow away from material goods. The obedience is you have, I believe it's the cardinals, the bishop, and then your senior pastors and whatever. That's how the ranking structure gets shuffled. And then chastity is you can't have sex. Uh, Hard pass, right? That's a no brainer. And actually, I do have pictures of that. I gotta dig those out for sure. Well, here's the rub. Get it? The rub. Anyways, walking these spiritual landmines and still trying to be good, but still having to deal with this other side of me, um, I naturally ended up in the youth group. And a friend of mine who was, for all accounts and purposes, he was a stud. All right, he was pretty tall. He worked out. He's pretty jacked. He played the guitar. I mean, that alone, right? Chicks dig guitars and guitar players. I mean, unfortunately, he got hit by a car and died. And his biggest issue was girls. He had he had problems with girls, and this is something that would come up all the time. And I always wondered to myself, I'm like, man, he had a classic car too, right? He had the looks, he had the good genes, and I remembered that I vowed to figure this girl thing out. At the wake, I actually told his parents. I told them that I was gonna figure this out, which was really cool and something that I'm actually fulfilling now as we speak, doing this right now. Herein lies the problem. And it's a quote that I use often when I think back. When our hearts are hungry, we will eat any scraps that fall off the table. And at that time, obviously grieving and all that, and being part of the youth group, you get attention and recognition, and there's girls hovering around. So I I fell for a girl who was like 10 red flags deep. And you know, hindsight being 2020, yeah, I would have chose way wiser. But anyways, being a good Catholic boy, I got with this girl. I got her pregnant, and because I was a good Catholic boy, I married her. Not out of love, but out of duty. I was gonna stay with this person to take care of my child. Being young, I think I was 21 at the time when my first son was born. I have four boys from this woman. And I wish that the infidelity would have been the only thing. But there's the separation. There's the custody battles, the courtrooms, the family therapy, the couples therapy, Yeah, that's why I'm here. To give you a little insight so you could choose wiser. Anyways, before I even found out she was cheating on me, I was having erectile dysfunction. And I sought out help. Like I always do. I know that I don't have the answers. So I looked up this guy called Jim Benson. He had a erectile dysfunction program and a stamina secret program. So you could last longer in bed. And it was a, at your pace course. This is in the early 2000s. And I had a consultation with him. I think he had like two or three, like 30-minute consults. The first one, he was just like, all right, go get some blood work done, but you're young, you're active, your work is very physical. It might either be psychological or something else. And then when all this proof came out, and I consulted him again, and he's like, that's what it was. It's like your your subconscious, your body, like knew, and it wasn't like letting you get there. Uh, I was also going to a therapist, a psychologist, because there was a lot of stuff that I couldn't control, and I was getting really angry at the kids. I remember that actually the time that I decided to, like, I need to go get help was about to go to sleep, and they're babies, and one of them spilt water on my side of the bed, and I flipped out. Like, I flipped out. It felt like, look, I don't have any other place in the house. I'm tired. This is my only refuge, and you put freaking water on it. I flipped out. The kids got scared. I remember seeing my kids scared, and I was like, oh man, I need help. So it was like my third or fourth session with this guy. And then I'm like, hey, found my wife cheating. Um, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that I was in that place to have a network of friends and family and professionals to guide me through it. I remembered he had me journal, and I couldn't I couldn't get over it. It broke me. It broke my identity. I for those whatever 8 years that we were married, that was my identity. I was a father and a husband, and this was like I never woke up thinking that I wasn't gonna grow old with this person, you know. Well, he had me journal. I gotta find the name of the book he had me follow, but because I kept like trying to put myself into their story. And he says, you're hurting yourself because what they did is between them two. You keep trying to insert yourself into their story, and that's hurting you because it has nothing to do with you. That was like earth shattering for me. You know, Jocko Willink says, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Because whatever you thought that person was, it's just all in your head. That's what you thought. Who they're showing you they are, that's the truth. Everything else is filler that you've made up or you've wanted to or you didn't want to confront. I know, I've been there. When she decided to lock her phone all of a sudden, I was like, what? That's weird. And started dressing better, started buying sexier lingerie. I was just so freaking weak. I couldn't confront her. I couldn't. And that's what I'm going to war against, is that weakness, that feeling of impotence, like not being able to confront somebody like that, not being able to come forth with your needs. And then when you're not able to do that, then you get bitter and resentful because these unmet needs, these requirements that your partner doesn't know about, that you can't voice because you're embarrassed or whatever, like that creates a lot of resentment. So what I did when my wife of 8 years, my actual the first girl that I actually had sex with out of love since fifth grade. So I didn't have much sexual relationships, sexual experience. I had girlfriends, and I kept it PG, and it was awesome. I learned a lot, but I never took it there. So I sought out help again, and I found, at the time, it was like I said, it was early 2000s, like 2010, 2012, and the pickup artist community was flourishing. There was real social dynamics. There was Jason Capital. A lot of these guys are doing different things now. I remember Ryan Majin. He had the handsome guy secrets, tips on your fashion and stuff like that. And I went deep on this. I bought every course I could. I tried to make a couple of their free tours, never did. But the Facebook group is still going on. Um, what's his name? His name is Todd V now. It was Todd Valentine then. Yeah, a bunch of these guys. If you know, you know. If you don't, Google them. You'll figure it out. So, in pickup, you learn a lot of things. Mainly evolutionary psychology. And the guys I followed, they did a lot of neuro linguistic programming, NLP, like hypnosis, obviously fashion. Uh, Number one is you start working on your fitness. You do improv to learn how to speak. They have you, read, because if you're gonna be worth listening to, you gotta have something to talk about, and you have to have ideas and have your own opinions about things, and be polarizing, and all this stuff helped me out. I went on I went on forums, on actual cheating forums, and I would speak to this women that had cheated, and just to try to get an understanding, like, I remember I had a conversation with I think she was like a lawyer or something, and the topic was on penis size, right? And she just said, like, it wasn't even the size. It doesn't matter. It's the way he made me feel. And I was like, okay. Started trying to figure out what went wrong in my relationship. And before that, I before I actually finally left, we tried working it out. I read every relationship book I could get my hands on. Um, uh, Dr. Glover has No More Mr. Nice Guy, and I took his course on PET. Is it PET? Emotional tension. I believe the course is. I can't remember what the P stands for. Anyways, it was exhaustive, and coupling what I knew about being a married man and what it well now what it takes to stay married, and then the attraction phase of how you express yourself, how you show yourself at the onset of a relationship, how you attract your way you look, because we speak with our bodies. Was really important skills that I learned that didn't just stop in attracting. I was able to interview better and get better jobs, and not necessarily because I was qualified, but because I was able to, talk with this person or get a little bit more information and build rapport with them. In K4, one of the guys is he's a CEO, and we were talking about this stuff, and he's like, "You just become a very good marketer and salesman, and the product is you. So you just become better at marketing yourself and putting yourself in the best light to sell your product, which is you." And that's what this channel is going to be about. That's um that's why I'm here. I've my hero's journey has been, you know, there's there's a hero and there's the villain, right? They both get hurt. They both get hurt, but the villain gets hurt and the world to pay, wants the world to feel the pain that he's felt. And the hero has been hurt, but he wants to save people from feeling that pain. He wants to prevent that pain from happening to them. So I went both ways, you know. I hated women at the onset. I was so upset for being cheated on that I was going to take it out on the whole female population. And there's some stuff that I'm not proud of. And with my wife's blessing, I'm remarried now, happily uh, married. Been together for 6 years, and she's an alpha female. And I've actually got to this platform because of her, because it's like, look, this is something you have to share. This is something that you've learned, and that's why I've called it Battlefield of Love, because you're going to war all the time. You're going to war against temptation with your spouse sometimes, uh, and it's battle tested. It's stuff that I've been through, and it's stuff that I'm, coaching my guys. And I just got done with a couple with a friend from jujitsu, and I'm going public with it. And I'm going first, and that's why I'm here. I'm actually recording on D-Day. I am not a vet, first and foremost. I have a lot of friends, and especially in K4, that are vets. Actually, DD 214 Fightwear, I'm an ambassador for them. One of the guys from K4, we had a conversation recently, and he said, like, how you speak Spanish. Spanish is another language I speak. Um, you also speak military. We were talking about Jody, and if you don't know who Jody is or what Jody is, if you speak Spanish, you'll know what a Sancho is, right? Well, in the military, Jody is the guy or girl, I think, that cheats when you're away, when you're deployed, right? And we were just talking about that, and he said, like, hey, when you speak two languages, when you're able to speak somebody else's language and communicate, you're a bridge builder. And he goes, and as a civilian, I feel good that you're able to speak my language. That way we can communicate. We have a bridge to build, right? So that's another reason. And because of these things, because of K4 was founded by two vets, Air Force vet and an Army vet. My very first job, I was with a bunch of Vietnam Marines. One of the maintenance guys still had shrapnel in his ears and in his head, and we found out he was a Silver Star recipient. So I speak that language. I'm a big Jocko fan. I got all Jocko's books up there. So I thought it was apropos to call it what it is, the battlefield of love. And going forward, that's what I'm going to distill and unearth: the lessons, the tips, the tricks, the tactics in getting better relationships. And with that, my name is Job Gomez. Welcome to my channel. I'm complete.